Incarceration of David Hicks without trial, without meeting the requirements of habeas corpus, with torture in the mix, has been a failure by the Howard government which let this nation down. Can you imagine what would have happened had two Americans been locked up in Australia, put on some island off the coast outside Australian jurisprudence, and the key thrown away and some torture introduced to boot? There would have been gunboats very fast, and the Americans would have insisted that their citizens were not left in those conditions. Now, if there's one thing which will cower our Prime Minister, it's the prospect of losing office. And so he got in contact with the White House, the Bush administration and Guantanamo Bay authorities and arranged for Hicks suddenly to be brought home. Not standing up for the Australian justice system, not standing up for decency and international law, but standing up for the cowardly self-interest that marks this Prime Minister's 11 years in office.
In the weeks after the G20 protests, raids were conducted on the homes of protesters. The Age newspaper compiled a photo gallery of peoples of interest, while Peter Costello and others made unchecked, unproven and untrue allegations about trucks being set on fire and protesters throwing urine, which I'm sure we're all fairly familiar with that accusation. And on the 14th of March this year, a unit called the Terrorism Investigations Unit raided the homes of 5 students in Sydney in connection with the G20 protests. Police have seized computers, equipment and documents from those who have not actually been charged with any G20 related offences and seem to be gathering intelligence on movements and campaigns not related to the events of the G20 protest in November last year. These actions are not so much a reaction to the events of the G20, but more a continuation of repression that began well before the day of the protest and is mirrored by events in our immediate region.
In November 2005, amid a clearly staged media frenzy, 13 men were arrested under the terror laws. They have not been charged with planning an attack. They have not been charged with preparing weapons. They have been charged with the kinds of private discussions that any of us might have about John Howard, about the federal government, and about the state of the Middle East. It's the dire state of war and misery that's been pushed upon them. Have you ever considered what it might be like for your country to be invaded and what you might do in response? Have you discussed this with family or friends? Have you ever talked about what you'd like to do to John Howard? I know I have. Have you ever gone on a camping trip with friends? This is the type of evidence, believe it or not, that is being presented in court against the Barwon 13.
The Howard government must be punished for what they've done. They must be punished for allowing David Hicks to be detained Guantanamo Bay for over 5 years. They could have got him out on day one. Up and down the country at the moment, rank and file members of the CFMEU are being interrogated, prosecuted and fined for standing up for workers' rights, for taking part in industrial action. Our government's a bad government. No Australian citizen should ever again be exposed to the jeopardy that David Hicks was exposed to by his own government.
I think most people are aware that what the Australian government have been doing, particularly on David's latest arraignment, I won't call them trials because they're not trials. They were set up to find him guilty. The longer they kept him there, the more he would want to come home, which meant he would end up accepting some sort of bargain. In an election year, so let's gag him. Let's stop David Hicks from coming out with a true story until we've had this election over and done with. I think the Howard government may be up for a rude awakening. The problem we have with this government at the moment is what rights do we as Australians have? Under this government we have none. They've stripped us of our human rights issues. They've also now taken the freedom of speech, or so they think. There's nothing to stop me from talking, and I'll talk as much as I can on David's situation. I believe we should still be putting pressure on the Howard government. The only way to do that is put your tick in another box and let him see what he can do under pressure.